So this is the second video of my little duel deck out of 60 packs of Curse of the Frozen Casket. First set in the Lapis cluster. It just came out of New Frontiers. It's now basically not being used because the Eternal format in Force of Will Wanderer these days isn't really that popular. Actually, Force of Will itself is not that popular at all. Which benefits me because then I can buy cheap packs, like 60 packs of Curse of the Frozen Casket for like, I think I paid 70 bucks for them. 75, 70, something like that. All right, so Yogg, basically has counters on it, and depending on the counters that it has, is how much it can board wipe. So it's a board wipe, but it's a board wipe for your creatures, your resonators, and your opponents. So you have to be careful. The ruler part, the one that you place to call stones, does nothing. Okay, it's got a little energized thingy, which is the like Hearthstone's coin. If you go second in the beginning of the game, other than that, it's just going to call stones, and then at some point you're going to decide how much mana you want to drop into the judgment. And if you say, okay, I want a judgment for 6, your X is equal to 6, then Yogg, and this is impossible to read, so I'm just going to read it to you. Actually, let me zoom it in and read it. So, I can actually read it through the visor. So, if you set X equals 6, it comes with 7 limit counters. And every time it blocks or attacks, it loses 1 counter. Okay? And then at the end of the turn, you destroy all resonators of that cost. So you come in and you're basically doing a ladder. You come in at 6. You can take out anything at 6. Then the next turn you can take out anything at 5. It includes your stuff too, so you got to be super careful when you do this. And this is why the deck really is built around a couple of big critters and a couple of little critters, and there's hardly anything in the middle that is worth keeping on the board. Okay, and I'm going to read the rest from the side. Okay, so at the end of your turn, destroy all resonators with total cost equal to the number of limit counters on this card. Then remove a limit counter, right? So you remove a limit counter. Now, at the beginning of your turn, if there are no limit counters, so you're done doing the limit counters business, this thing dies and you get hit for 2,000, and it's a 1,500. So you want to be able to do this when you're, I would say you'd have to be close to winning the game. You have to have 2 or 3 turns. Maybe you do a board wipe first and then use the limit counters to intimidate your opponent. I don't know. I have to play it more. I have to play it a lot more. Okay. The deck's got a couple of beaters. This guy and this guy are really linked. So there's a couple of combos in this deck. So let's go through this guy first. All right. So it's a wizard. And it's a 700/703 drop. For 4, you can banish it. Okay? Then when you banish it, you can put a Thulu Resonator from your hand into your field. The deck also has a 1-drop Thulu Resonator. That's not what you're going to want to do. You want to drop this dude, which is a Thulu. So you put this guy on the board, you vanish him for 4, and then you only paid 4 to cast this dude, which is 2,000. Okay, that's all this guy does. So I'm going to set him aside, and I'm going to talk about our dear friend, Asatoth, Hunter of Reality. Okay, he's able to pull 3 of them. If I had pulled a 4th, I doubt I would have put him in here, because I think this deck doesn't need more than 3. And I'll tell you why. So it's also got the limit thingy going on. Okay, and it's very difficult to read. It comes in with limit 6. So it's got 6 counters on it, okay? And I'm just going to read it from the side, okay? Whenever this card attacks or blocks, remove a limit counter from it. If this card would be destroyed, you may remove a limit counter from it instead. If you do, remove all damage from it, right? So if you were going to do your own board wipe, you kill everything, this stays, you just take off a limit counter. That's pretty good. But then, okay, And also, whenever this card attacks or blocks destroy target resonator, that's pretty good because you don't have to attack that specific resonator you want to kill. You may attack another resonator and say, ah, I attacked, boom, that other thing dies. And then the bad one, at the end of turn, if there are no limit counters on this card, destroy it. If you do, this card deals 2,000 damage to you. So you really want to hit with this dude at a point in time when it'll always have limit counters. All right. Now there isn't a card in this deck that puts limit counters on anything, and that would be nice. And because that isn't the case, you're gonna have to be careful with this card. So this is the thing about Yogg. I think it's a very powerful ruler. I mean, it's got board wiping, you know, galore, but can also hurt you. Okay, so then there's the cards that are part of the combo with the black treasure box. It's this card, and then this card. I'll go through this card right now. Actually, I'll go through the simple cards first, and then we'll go through the treasure box. Is it treasure box? Yeah, I think it is. Okay, so let's go through the rest of the deck, and then we'll get to that combo. Board wipe at 5. Destroys all creatures, and that includes yours. Okay, all creatures. Playset of that. This one for one mana, you pick something out of your opponent's hand. Okay, and it's a non-resonator card, and then you put a plus 100 plus 100 counter 100 counter on one of your resonators. Okay, this is a 1-drop. It's a Thulu, which you're not gonna. It's not gonna be the one you're gonna free cast for sure. And then it basically has Death Touch. So whenever it attacks, it deals damage to a resonator. It kills it. That's what Death Touch means. Okay. Then this one, it's another 1-drop. It's an addition, and you may pay 1 less to play Judgment abilities. And for 4, you banish it, and your opponent discards a card. And it's one of those that's really additive. So I wouldn't mind having 4 of these on the board. It means that it will reduce my judgment cost by 4. Effectively means I can put 4 more limit counters on when I do judgment. So that's pretty good. Okay, and that's why it's here as a playset. And then a 1-drop dude that attacks hard. Okay, it has to attack. It has Bloodlust. So 500, 300, that's not bad. It's just an aggro critter. And then in the mid-range, it wouldn't hurt to have these 2 guys. 5-drop, 1100, 1100. And then you can banish one of your resonators and you can destroy something small. Something that costs 3 or less. Okay, so then let's go to the treasure box cards. I'll just take 1 of each and discuss them from the places so I don't have 12 cards to be talking about. Okay, so at 2, and it's a fairy tale. These are both fairy tales, so they're not Thulus. It's important to note because there's nothing tribal in this deck. When this card enters the field, destroy target damaged resonator. That's very good. Then when it's put into the graveyard from your field, tutor for the box. Okay, that's good. Then this one, if a resonator would be put into a graveyard from your opponent's field, remove it from the game instead. That's kind of interesting because this could be like one of those where you have one of these on the board, you board wipe, and this activates, and all of your opponent's cards are exiled. This one just dies. Then instead, you can also tap it, and then you may bestow the treasure box, which is really a killer. It's a killer enchantment aura. So you put it on your opponent's enchantment. So you can actually put this on your opponent for free. Costs you only 1, but still it's nice. It's a nice effect. And then when you put it on your opponent, yes, you got to pay 1, goes in an enchantment, then you tap it, and you put it on for 1 more. You're saving that 1. You're saving 2, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, so if you bestow... Oh, I see what happened. Okay, right. So no, you still have to cast it It has to be on the board, and then when you tap this, then you get the 1 free to do that. That's what's happening here. Got it, got it. And then best to discard to a resonator, play this ability. Only, you can only do a on one card, and only anytime you can play a chance. So I think it's a sorcery speed card. And at the beginning of your turn, destroy this card and bestow resonator. That's it. So it's a resonator killer. That's pretty good. Okay, so whoever has resonators against you, this deck is fully equipped to take care of resonators, as long as they don't have whatever it's called, the hexproof equivalent in Force of Will. As long as it doesn't have that, this deck will do it. Okay, so there you have it. And what I'm going to do in the next video is set up a modeled game of, I think I'm going to start with Sun Wukong. And I'm not sure how many of these I will model, because I don't really understand this deck well enough. I haven't played it enough. And so I feel like it would be a little bit of a waste of time for the video, because you'll see me kind of figure out the deck as I play it. On the flip side, if you like that kind of video, then you're going to enjoy the one where I make all kinds of mistakes with this deck, versus the one where I'm like, oh yeah, I've only played like 20 games where I modeled this deck and I knew that, I shouldn't have played this late in the game. I almost took Melfi out, and then I was like, no, I need a mana rock. Of course, the 1-drop mana rocks are all in the starter deck for Lapis, which I think comes out, it sells in eBay for like 60 bucks. Okay, so I've rambled on enough. I'm going to leave it there. So this second video is really all about Yogg and this discard and destruction deck.